Hi, I'm Teresa Chang.
Hi, I'm Marianne McCara.
Hi, I'm Felicia Grant Cummings.
Hi, I'm Kim Johnson with Moms Navigating Autism.
When my mother died, my son was about 10. And I think he knew that there was something wrong because my mother had Parkinson's disease and she had diabetes, which are two debilitating diseases. So by the time the Parkinson's was the most noticeable, and we were always having to go to the hospital because she either had a stroke, because in the end you go through a lot of strokes with Parkinson's disease. So my son, it was very weird because that was the year that he came home and said, "Mom, I have Asperger's." It was like really, it was like that year was just a strange year because he came home, he figured himself out what he had. Mm-hmm. And then he went, I wasn't able to give a lot of time to everything because my mom had Parkinson's. So we were all taking turns trying to deal with her because she couldn't eat without shaking, So you can visually tell that my mom was really sick. Mm-hmm. So he knew. In his own way, he knew. And then one morning, my husband used to always go and give her insulin injections because there's a reason I did not become a doctor, and the sight of blood, forget it. I am one of those people. So he used to go down and give her insulin injections. And one morning he comes up, he goes, "I really have to talk to you." And I said, "What's going on?" And he's like, "Your mom passed away." I went down to give her injection and she passed. She was already gone by the time he went down there. So that was hard on him because he found her. And right. Then came the whole, having to deal with like the next few days are just complete blur. And he, he was kind of accepting, but in his mind, he had seen funerals in the past on TV and different things. So he knew he wanted to help carry the casket. He was too small, but he wanted to help carry the casket. There were like certain things that he had seen on TV and that he knew that he was going to be a part of. So we finally settled on he would say something at the eulogy. And that's what he did. He wrote a letter and he read it to his grandmother at the eulogy. And it was pretty good. Even my brother was like, "Oh, he's doing really good," And but then 4 years later, my father passed, and my father died at a nursing home. We went there the following morning, and things were different for him because my father had my mother wanted to be buried, the whole traditional Catholic funeral, be buried and everything at the cemetery. My father did not want a complete funeral like my mother had. My father wanted he wanted to be cremated. So after you go to the through the mass and it ends like there, you're not going to the cemetery, so right. It was kind of like it was completely different. And I think that's what bothered him more than anything else, because he started to perseverate on that and forgot about everything else. He knew grandpa wasn't there, but he was never particularly close to to my father. But when his grandfather, my husband's father, passed away, it was a different story. He was older. He was 19, 18. And he carried the caskets with his cousins, and it hit him harder than when my father died, because I think that the whole, once again, I think transition and his what he had seen on TV was different than when what my father had.
Mhm.
So I think that was what caught his eye more than anything. But yeah, you know, it did hurt, and he went through time. And I think what most bothered him more was, you know, I would sit at home and it could be 6 months later, and all of a sudden I'd start crying because I missed my mother. But my mother was the closest, and you know, I'd miss my mother, and he would be like, "Mom, why are you crying?" And I'd say I'd miss Grandma, and he would say, "Oh," and then you know, he was like 10 or 11. He'd go and find one of his teddy bears and hand me his teddy bear. And he'd say, he makes me feel better, so maybe he'll make you feel better, you know. But that was his way of handling it, which was kind of nice. But you know, I wasn't sure whether, you know, he he understood it completely like we understood it, or he was just going through.
Emotions. So it could
Right.
be his right.
Right, or he was going through what was expected of him from based on what he had seen on TV.
And I don't think he understands death or, you know, anything like
Right,
that.
right.
So it's like, yeah. My son knows, oh, this is
Right.
daddy. This is daddy in the picture. But
Right.
I mean, he can't explain it to me, but I know that he doesn't have a sense of time, like how many days
Right.
passed. It's been 10 years. You know,
Right.
I know he doesn't understand that. It feels like yesterday probably in his, because you're showing him the pictures all the time. You're mentioning him so he knows, you know, so he
Right.
knows. Like, you know, if somebody disappeared for 10 years and walked in 10 years later, he just picks off where you left off.
Right. Right. Where we left
So,
off.
yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. Well, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you. How did he handle that? He really didn't know when your husband passed away.
It's kind of not a blessing, but like then he doesn't understand pain or sorrow or missing. Like I
How
said, you
old
can
is
show
he?
pictures, and my son is 22 now, so he was 12 when my husband passed away. So, I show him pictures and I say, daddy, I'll say his name, I'll say his first name, and, I'll say it with a tone of my voice and he'll start giggling. And, I'll say certain things that my husband used to say to him. And he knows what I'm saying and talking about. And I know he must relate it to him, but he has no sense of knowing that, oh, he's gone. Yeah, he used to
Right.
go out and go to work every day. I don't think he understands the concept of time and that 10 years have passed,
What
I
was
mean,
their
I'm
relationship?
very close to him. I'm his primary caregiver. He looks for me when I leave to come back, like he
Right.
knows that I'm not gone. But eventually over time, he might not understand the time. He may always still be looking and
Right.
waiting, but it's a little different connection. But I think it still becomes of not knowing the sense of time or anything. So
What was their relationship like before he passed away? Your son's and his father's.
I mean, he had the easy part thing about my husband. It was all fun and hanging out and those kind of things. He didn't do the everyday things like taking care of what happens with school, putting you on the bus, giving you your bath every day, making sure you're fed. He only did it if he had to do it. So it was all the fun and joking around and call him Mini Me and hang out. And he used to have certain things he used to say to him all the time in the house. He used to call him Bigums. And the fun stuff.
It's really hard to know what he knows and what he doesn't know because he's not verbal. So it's really, really hard to tell. His grandmother recently died, my mother, and I mean, I'm sure I could try to explain to him, grandma is dead, you're not going to see her anymore. But I honestly don't think he would understand it or grasp it in any meaningful way, shape, or form. Personally, I don't think my son has the wherewithal to cognitively understand the concept
Right.
of death. So in a way, perhaps that's a blessing.
That's what I think.
He won't
Yeah,
know,
that's what I'm
Right.
saying.
he won't know the same feelings of grief,
Sadness.
loss
Yeah.
that a more typical child might. But it's it's hard to say.
Well,
Right.
my daughter, my father passed in August, this past August, and it was sudden, even though he had dementia. And, you know, we knew he was going down a certain path. It still was a sudden death at, you know, at this time, just because we weren't, you know, we weren't expecting it at that moment. But, you know, I think, you know, my daughter was well aware of the impact, but I think when we talk about just subtleties about things,
Mhm.
where young people with autism don't always know, like, the line, I'll say like that, the fine line. Several weeks, a month after my father's passing, my daughter had taken a picture of the program, and it, you know, had my father's face on it, and we went to dinner, and of course, you know, I was still having moments of, you know, breakdown and
Mhm.
sadness, etc. But we went to dinner as a family, and, you know, it was a good day. Well, my daughter hands me her phone, and she had somehow found some sort of app
Mhm.
that was able to make the eyes move
Oh,
on
really?
the program.
Wow.
And so it was a picture that somehow there was some app that made the eyes move, you know. And I guess she thought it was kind of cool.
Mhm.
But for me, when I saw this picture,
Mhm.
which was of my dad who had recently passed,
Mhm.
and his eyes were moving, it was disturbing, you know, to me. And it was very upsetting. And I
I can
tried to
understand
hold
that.
it, and I had to step outside to
Mm.
just, because I
Mhm.
didn't want her to feel bad, but
Right.
also in that moment, I just was overwhelmed, you know,
Mhm.
and she just didn't realize the sensitivity part about it, you know.
Okay.
She thought she had done something that was kind of cool,
Mhm.
Right.
and not that it would upset me, you know. So, you know, I went outside, I had my little moment, I
Mhm.
came back in, you know, and you know, we continued to have our meal, etc. I
Yeah.
mean, I wasn't mad. I wasn't mad at her.
Right.
But it was just that little subtlety of
But they
just,
go.
yeah, where the line is, you know.
Mhm.
Isn't
She's
that part
used,
of not having a filter a little bit too? Like a lot of autistic people that understand can have a conversation. It's like no filter to things.
oh,
Like sometimes.
absolutely.
So I mean,
That's absolutely the thing we always tell her. She has no filter. She has
but
no
you know, and I honestly kind of like that sometimes because that's a true somebody in their thoughts and feelings of speaking of it how it is sometimes.
yes.
So it's kind of like, and I like those conversations sometimes. And like at our local, you know, supermarkets and stuff, there's a lot of, you know, people with Asperger's that are doing the carts and bagging and stuff. And
Mhm.
some of them talk to me and have talked to me over the years because they see me and they're like, why, you know, like again, no filter kind of thing. They're saying, "Oh, why does he watch that video player? Why don't you make him get up and walk?" And then they'll explain some of their experiences to
Yeah.
sound and I like these conversations. They say how it is on everything.
Oh, they
So
say it how it is.
yeah,
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes we have to, you know, remind her whatever pops in your head doesn't necessarily have to come out of your mouth. Like
I remember
sometimes,
talking to her in the store before,
yeah.
and I was just like, "Let's go." I was like, "How really?" You know, I was so into the conversation with her.
Well, I mean,
And
she's
I
very
didn't.
engaging. She's
Yes,
very
she is. She's
engaging. Yeah.
very
She's very
so.
engaging. And we love her. But some of those thoughts sometimes just kind of, you know, just pop right out. And, you know, sometimes I've said to my husband, like, oh my gosh, like, just some of the stuff she says to me as a mom can be really hurtful. And I'm just like, sometimes I'm stunned, you know, like really? That just came out her mouth because there is no filter, you
So
know?
when you have a conversation with her on sensitivity of stuff, because I know you're that type of person that will have a conversation and explain it and sit her down and stuff like that. Does
Right.
she understand that? Like when you're explaining it to her, or is she not an argument back with you, but you know, like say, but well, why can't we say that? Or, you know, this is, you know, like they see
She,
it
you
totally
know,
different, kind of.
what happens is she was not aware of it when she did it.
Uh-huh.
And then when it's brought to her attention, then she's like, oh, okay.
Okay. So she
You know.
gets it when it's
She gets it when you
Okay.
talk about it. But
Uh-huh.
I think sometimes, it's still short-lived, she got it for that circumstance, but sometimes to apply it,
To another
across the
situation.
board to other situations, is a hit or miss. Sometimes yes, and then she'll, like mom, I got, like she'll, she's kind of like, not like,
Approval.
did I do it right? Like, did I do it right this time? And I'm like, yeah, you got it right this time. And, and other times, when I'm trying to pull her back, if we're, out and she's responding to somebody else and I'm trying to kind of, how your mother under the table, taps you or pokes you. She's like, what? And I'm like, like, like I'm trying to do this in a quiet way, in a subtle way. And she's like, what? Why are you hitting me? Why are you tapping me? Why are
Put
you,
you all out on blast.
And I'm just like, yeah.
Close your cover.
That's what she does. She does. But that's what you get, that's what you get with, with the kid that you have, that's what you get. So sometimes it's like, oh, it's embarrassing. And other times it's just funny, like, I'll even just make it a light moment and I'll just say, really? You blowing my cover like that? And then she goes, oh, like, oh, okay, So if I call her out, in a funny way, then she gets it and, she'll pull it back. Yeah.
Teresa was saying before something about somebody had made a comment to her, oh, why don't you teach him better, or something she was saying before being out with her son or something had happened. I was in Kohl's a couple of years ago, and my son, because he can't walk long distances, so now he has a wheelchair, but he had like a huge stroller at one point. So if I'm gonna go out shopping, I'm gonna be out for like an hour in the store or something, he's gotta be in there because he can only walk a certain amount of distance and then he sits on the floor. He's got his video player and he just sits on the floor. So I have this big stroller that I had for him, and we're walking through Kohl's, and it was right after the holiday, so there was lines for people returning stuff. Some guy was walking this way while I was pushing my son, and the guy was like, oh, he's too big for that stroller. Why isn't he walking? Like, you don't know my situation. I was like, I had to pull myself in so far because I don't want to be the person that just rages at everybody that has something to say because they're ignorant. But like, it was kind of like, do you want to know why he's in the stroller? Because he's autistic and can't walk a long distance. So if I had him in a wheelchair, you'd be okay with that. This is what we have at the time. It was a handicapped stroller. So it holds up to 250 pounds, and he was smaller at the time. He wasn't as big as the stroller. But like, who are you for a situation like that? It's not like I have an unruly little child in the store that's not listening and misbehaving. Even then, as parents, you can't control all of that either. But
Right. I would have been like, mind your
like,
business.
I was like, my niece is like, what's the matter? I said, man, I'm just gonna keep walking, Cindy.
Yeah.
I said, I gotta ignore him because people are
You
just
have to bite your
ignorant.
tongue. A lot of times you have to always bite your tongue and just keep on moving, because a lot of people that just mean, they're just mean and bully. They just
It was an
look at
older
you different.
gentleman.
Yeah. And he should have
I
been
like,
ashamed himself to be, and he's older. He should have
yeah,
known better.
we got in a fight with some guy in ShopRite because I don't even know what happened. We were walking. It was late at night. My sister and I have a habit of being considerate of everybody else because we take up a lot of space with the stroller and the cart and stuff. And he was walking towards me, and my sister didn't realize. She thought I knew him. He started doing this with his head. Oh no! And I'm like, who are you talking to? And like, he started yelling at me, this guy, like, because I was in his space. I wasn't even in his space. And he went off, and my sister's like, oh, you know that guy? Ha, ha. She thought we were like joking back and forth. And he was just going at it. My sister had to jump in, and he was like, nobody cares about you and your retarded baby in a stroller. That is what this guy said. Man, people that worked in ShopRite came out to our defense. My sister was ready to drop this guy in the store, in the produce department. I'm like, what is wrong with somebody? I said, excuse me, sorry, but because that wasn't what you were feeling at the moment. And he was just like, with the head and the whole thing. Oh my God, my sister was gonna drop him in the store. But like, what is wrong with people? Like, I wasn't even like, again, I'm very, oh, let me move out of your way. Oh, ignore us, just push that out of your way. Because we're a lot in the store sometimes. We're a lot to take, So I'm always considerate of other people, but people are just
Yeah, it's so sad. People nowadays, it's so cruel, so sad.
It's just like when we go anywhere, like even my nieces and nephews, when they grew up, you know, they're the average children as they were growing up and stuff. Even going
Right.
apple picking is like, when we used to go to Wilkins, they have the hayride that goes out to pick the apples.
Right,
So
right.
like, so we'd let everybody go ahead of us if the thing was almost full, so that we were the first people to go on, because my son needed assistance being picked up, put on, and then we all have to get on to go. So we wanted to be the first one. We let people go ahead of us. Now the people behind us had to have seen us let people go ahead of us and things like that. So the next one comes, they bum rush to all get on.
The thing about it, my daughter wouldn't even get off.
Uh-huh.
Why can't she get off? She's been on for so long. Because she didn't want to get off. Is there a problem? She
What's
wants
the
to go
big deal?
ride her
It's only
dad.
one person.
Yes.
You can't get over it. And then when we're out there was an older gentleman out there, and my nieces and nephew, we're trying to get my son onto the thing, and we're telling, and my nieces and nephew had to be like 7, 8 maybe at the time.
Yeah.
There was an older
They're
gentleman that
rude.
couldn't get on. You guys help this gentleman onto the thing. So we're teaching at a young age. You need to help him because he's elderly and he needs to get on. But people want to even let him get. Hello, like, what is wrong with people? I don't, not because I have a handicapped child and you should all help me. I don't ask
Right, right.
anybody for anything.
Right.
I learn to do what I have to do, and people that help and are considerate, I thank them, whatever. But like, if I see, and I got my son and he's pulling my hair, and I see somebody needs help, I'm also reaching my hand out to help somebody.
Help you. Right.
You know, it's like people just don't have that same.
No.
It just drives me nuts. I try to bite my tongue. I don't want to get in a fight with everybody, but it like, if I see it when I'm out there, it drives me nuts. I can't be quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It's so sad.
Yeah, people aren't understanding, and you know, and what it's now 1 in 54 according to the
Or the
CDC.
stare, yeah, or they're staring at you, or why are you taking so long? Or why is this child, can you hurry up? Like they're just
Parents aren't
looking at you
teaching
like
that to their
they,
children
yeah,
either. They're
they're
not
No,
teaching
they're
rude,
their
they're
not.
nasty.
children.
No, they're not. You're 100% right.
It's
They're
like,
not.
if
They're
you
not.
walk in the store, you'll watch a little kid. They're so busy watching my son with his video player.
Right.
Or like, I have a condition called lymphedema, so my legs are very swollen. So people, like, kids are walking, they walk into the wall. You know, or I watch teenagers stare, and then every now and then I'll be like, and I'll just stare back, and then they don't know
Yeah.
what to do with their stare. I don't do it meanly. I just do it back. I'm just like, stare, and they're like, they don't know where to
That's,
look.
yeah.
Like, they catch themselves up. Like, oh my god, what do I do? You know,
Yeah.
Staring back
it's
at
so
me.
rude. It's rude.
Staring back at me. No,
I try to
I
make them,
know.
you know what it is? I try to make them uncomfortable. Because you're doing it to somebody that makes them uncomfortable. My son could care less, but you know, you're doing it to somebody and they're feeling uncomfortable. So now what if I just stared at you and didn't take my eyes off you? They don't know what to do. Like, they're like, look down at
Right.
the phone.
Or
They don't
well,
know what
see,
to
like
do.
with my son, he would notice, and he would either feel embarrassed, and he would feel bad, and he would be upset about it. You
And
know.
it's not right of people to make people feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah. How does your daughter deal with it, Felicia?
I find that more or less strangers connect with her or engaged by her, but I think it's more when she's in school. You know,
Yeah.
she this year has said multiple times, and it's heartbreaking. She goes, I'm invisible. And I said, well, you know, I've explored it several times. What do you mean you're invisible? She said, I'm invisible. My class, not just an individual classroom, but meaning her graduating class, she says, I'm invisible to them. They act like I'm not around. And I said, but, you know, I don't believe that to be true. And then she gives me instances where she'll walk in a room or she'll come to a table and kids straight up ignore her. Just straight up ignore her. And that is heartbreaking, you know?
It is.
And I think about from middle school where she would come to a lunch table and then people would make fun of her, or they'd have her do things that were silly to make fun of her, where she thought, oh, they want to hear me sing, or they want me to, do this because they think I'm really good at something, when all they were doing was making fun of her. So from that to then have, where she feels she's invisible is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
You know what they did to my son one time?
But she's a great kid and she has so much to offer. And
She is. She's a
I'm sorry
great kid.
to cut you. What I've said to her is that, you know what, Kira, you're gonna find my daughter, you're gonna find your tribe. And you know, when you get out of college, it's not gonna, when you get out of high school, the kids and young people, I think, are a little bit different. You're gonna
They get
gravitate
nicer.
toward the people that are like you, who are gonna like you for you. They're not going to be looking to pick you apart. And if they do, to heck with them. You go to another, you know, another group of people to who you have commonalities with, you know. I said, you know, it's going to be very different. You don't have to say compete with some of these people who are the most popular, the most this, the most that. You need to just connect with people who like you for you. Like you for
Right.
you. And that's it. For you. You know? And you know, it's funny, Kim. I told her a story.
Oh, what I said to you when we met the first time. What was I say? I knew that was gonna come up.
But you know what? I appreciate that, you know, and really I used it as like a teaching tool, because what I said to her was, she was just so caught up. This was like Thanksgiving, around Thanksgiving break. And she was so caught up in everything, you know, these people do this and these kids do that. And I said, it's not gonna matter. And then I told her, I said, you know what? I said, here it is, X number of years
Yeah.
later, you know, and I explained to her who you are, you know, in terms of, you know, who you're related to. And I said, we went to school together. And I said, and I remember her as just a great girl. I said, but she remembered me and said, oh, I know you used to hang out with someone who wasn't very kind to me. And I was shocked and I was surprised. And I explained that to her, that, you know, I didn't at that time see that in that person, because that person was kind to me, but I didn't know that person wasn't kind to others. And for you to say to me, but you know, and when I said, I'm so sorry, that you were like, oh no, you were friends with everybody, you liked everybody, you were good. That made me feel good X number of years later, to say that, hey, you know what, I did. I tried to treat everybody, you know, equal and the same, and not pass judgment on people. And, you know, that's what I wanted her to know, is that years later, it's not going to matter. Those people are not going to matter. You know, let people judge you for who you are and your character, who you are as a person. You shine with the characteristics that you have, and people who are genuine will appreciate that.
It stands out. That's something you remember. So,
you know, the people who don't, they have to go to the side.
yeah, no,
Right.
Felicia was never mean. It was the people that around her.
Yeah.
Well, you know
Some of
what?
them.
With that said, who knows what they did behind my back? Who knows? You know, like, you know,
Well,
Are
the
you
way
friends
I
with any
tell
of those people still?
just on Facebook.
the way I tell my son is that when kids get out of high school, things change. They mature and they change. And and he's starting to realize that, because he sees people he went to high school that were not nice to him. And they're like, how are you doing? How are you?